Welcome to episode 37 of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. Today, I want to share with you a conversation that I had with Lilly Beyond. And this conversation was actually really fun, which I didn't really expect when I was speaking to another burnout coach who specializes in helping high achieving women, that we'd find ourselves talking about Super Mario Land and embracing your inner child. So this was a really fun conversation, and if you really enjoyed this episode and like Lily's fun and high energy, I highly recommend jumping on a call with her, or maybe checking out her social media if you need a quick pick-me-up. So let me know if you enjoyed this episode, and yeah, let me know what you think of Lilly Beyond. Lilly, it's great having you here on the show. And one thing that I always like to start with the coaches is that we tend to follow a similar pattern. We have this breaking point or rock bottom. And it's in that moment we have realization that we need to improve ourselves. It takes us on a journey of self-recovery, self-discovery, growth, and development. And for some of us, somewhere along that line, it brings us to this vision or spark to get into coaching, to serve others, to help others so that maybe they don't have to experience what we went through. So what was that like for you, and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Eugene, first for having me. I love that you share the space and really share multiple perspectives on this very complex topic. And I think the more stories we have around that, this is so valuable. And this is really, really cool. So for me, I love when you say like rock bottom. I was just thinking, I think I had actually two levels, like bouncing one. I had one really physical break point, was like, okay, something needs to change. I was in event management. So we had these huge events going on in Austria and in Tokyo. And it was just crazy work hours. And I think like event managers are on the top 3 most stressful work jobs you can have in the world. So, and without kind of this kind of mental support and this kind of structure, it is a recipe to fail at some point. And for me, I really remember this point where it was just physically impossible to do more. I was like, hey, how I need more hands, or I need more hours in a day. It was really this is the only logical solution for my problem right now. And unfortunately, I did not see this red flag. I thought, okay, let's take a break. Let's go on a vacation. But the thing is, once we give ourselves those breaks, our body crashes even more. It's like we can definitely get sick. And like this is the whole biochemistry then trying to catch up with the stress level and trying to recover along the way. But for me, it was this first bounce. And then the second bounce was like, okay, those rules are just not working for me anymore. I need to change something really radically. And fortunately, we were in the process of selling our company back then. So the startup company we had, and it was just a beautiful way out. Yeah. Because I was also very emotionally attached to the project because I was kind of the brand mom of this whole conference. And it was just a really hard decision because it was kind of my baby, yeah, to give that up or give that over. But at some point it was like, okay, I have to take care of me right now. This is not working. And it started for me to really I gave myself half a year. In my mind, I gave myself half a year, but in my heart, I already felt like, okay, it's going to be at least a year of landing again, like coming back, like letting the dust settle in a sense and see like what is actually there and what do I actually care about, and getting back to that root of, what excites me? What is Lilly? Yeah, I really had this one point. It's just ridiculous when I was back then thinking about it. I was managing director at 150 people, like $1 million budget each year to handle, and huge things happening. And I met myself this one point on a Thursday evening, Googling what is self-confidence. Like, hey, I don't get this concept. If someone tells me, and even in speakers then on stage, like cool speakers starting to talk about like mindfulness for founders and leaders, like, hey, I don't get it. Like, I can't compute this. I don't know. I don't have a filter where this can enter my body in a sense. This I really noticed this, hey, I can be successful on paper, but still you can crumble inside like there's no tomorrow. And if something kind of slightly comes at you, you really notice like, oh, how fragile this actually is. And you're trying to hold this facade up just to make it through to some next checkpoint. And for me, it was really like, okay, this rule system is not working. We have to reset. We have to go about this. And yeah, this is when I found my way into coaching. Funny story, actually. My former boss then introduced me to a Viennese coach, and actually my first in contact with coaching and even therapy was so negative. I didn't like it at all. I was like, what are we even talking about here? And just talking about things I knew like what I need to say to maneuver my way out of it. It was like, I was totally up in my head, like trapped in my own mind rules. Totally messed up. But yeah, honestly, then like a friend of mine introduced me then to this, the movie came out back then from Tony Robbins, I'm Not Your Guru. And like I tried to construct it backwards, kind of. I think this was really the first touch point, like, oh, this is how it could also happen. Like, oh, this is this other level of really coming from within and having this deep meeting point of really building this relationship from within. And it really is up to me to make that happen. And this is what kind of brought me on that journey.
So you like to help women who are high achievers to help them recover from burnout, to start their burnout recovery. Is that right?
Yeah. So in a sense, like a version of me, because I think this is a perfect way to start. Like if we have a model of a version of us, like, hey, if I'm here, I'm sure there are others out there, and they are. This is really the crazy thing about it. Your particular composition of things is so much needed. So that's why I really feel called for, yeah, women in their 30s, like, yes, they want to achieve things. They have high ambitions, they have high dreams, but like somehow they need to get their body and their mind on board to really make that happen. Yes, we can keep up the facade. Yes, we know what needs to get done. Yes, we are good at firefighting. But like, what else is there? Like, what's coming? So it's not actually recovery also. I mean, I had a couple of clients now with recovery, but I really focus on now on this whole prevention thing even. And I know it's the heavy lift, to be honest, because I have many interviews with women, especially even with clients, or even like general like research interviews with women in those positions. And most of them are not aware. Like literally, I mean, I know this analogy with the frog in the pot is actually not how it works, but in our mind it works like being this frog in this water and it's heating up and we don't know it's boiling at some point. This visual somehow works to that they don't really realize, like, hey, what is actually happening around me? I get triggered by the littlest things. Like I full stop taking care of myself. I cannot sleep anymore. I'm taking on more things and not getting done anything. And like all those signals, we need to be educated about understanding what those lead to. So you don't like 4 weeks out say, okay, hey, in 4 weeks, I'm going to crash and burn. This is it. So how can we have this softer landing? And yes, we're going to need some time out. And yes, we need to change some things, but it can happen without this total crash. This is kind of my mission.
Yeah, so one thing you point out there is I suppose you're trying to identify the signs of burnout so that it doesn't get to that point, it doesn't get to that critical point where you crash and burn. So it's trying to identify what are the early signs of burnout so that you either see them within yourself or within your work colleagues so that you can intervene yourself or maybe approach your colleague in a way and get them the help that they need, or maybe make the work environment easier for them so that maybe like if you see someone burning out or you see someone stressed and irritable, you don't want to point and go like, hey, I think you're experiencing burnout, you need to get help, because they're going to be straight on the defensive. You can't use that approach. So you have to be more subtle and kind of more nuanced in your approach and be like, hey, as they're like, it's like, oh, you're working long hours. Like, oh, if that was me, I'd be really tired right now. And then be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm feeling really tired, but this has to be done. This has to be done. I have to get A, B, and C done by Monday, and I have no time for myself. And it's like, wow, it's like if I was in your shoes, I'd be feeling pretty burnt out. And that might be the moment that it takes them to realize that's like, you know what, maybe that is how I'm feeling. Or maybe they
Yeah.
go back on the defense and they're like, no, I don't have time to be burnt out. I've got too much on my plate, and they carry on. But it's trying to find that right approach to try and come across kind of nuance and subtly to them. But again, yeah, the first step is trying to identify those early signs. So when
Yes.
it comes to high achieving women in the workplace, where do you find that the earliest signs of them burning out seem to be?
So I think such a red flag is if you identify so much with your role that this is really the first thing you think about. If someone would ask you, like, hey, who are you? What do you do? I mean, yes, we tend to introduce us with our work. But like, just to give ourselves the space, like, hey, is this part of my identity? Or is this just something I'm doing to make money and support my family? I think this is really something to just make a check-in with yourself. Like, hey, how much do I identify with what I'm doing? Or can I have this little breathing break? Like when you're breathing, there is this little gap. Like, can there be this little gap of, okay, there's me as an identity, and here's what I'm doing. And it can be a little separated. And it's good that yes, there's overlap, of course, but do I see still those two entities, or is it so intermingled, so intertwined, there's no way to untangle this so it doesn't fall apart? So this for sure. And yeah, I mean, so generally with time management, of course, yeah, like trying to show that you're working, like writing important emails at 10 p.m., like stuff like this. This is, yeah, we try to, this is so intertwined. I mean, we can talk about just about that for an hour for sure. This, what we want to try to prove with that, and then what this kind of proves, yeah, what we talked about before, right, with the male dominated environment and trying to, yes, I can do it and I can handle all of it, and then this kind of performance driven environment of things. But really, we lose so easily this touch of, hey, we are still human to human. This was for me really kind of a thing that I only actually really got in the last in the last year, to be really honest, that everything we do is a human to human business. Because I mean, we were screening startups, like 3,000 startups each year, and it was always like, are you B2C, B2B, B2B2C, like all those concepts of business models. But like in the end, it's really human to human. Like, what was this human? What from this human? How can I help this human? What is really on the other side? And if I send this message right now, is this really helping this person? Is this supporting my role right now? Like really allowing yourself these little check-ins and these little questions, those reflections, to give yourself a little space from what you're doing and where you are right now. So this is, yeah, for sure something. If you feel like there's no space in there, like, oh, it's tuck, 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 and there's no breathing space in between, for sure this is a red flag too. Just consider, like, hey, is this working? Sometimes it can be working. So if you're physically like on track and everything's working and you have time to work out and you have good sleep and this is just how you operate and tuck, 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 can work for someone. But just if you feel like, oh, you're actually physically depleting and hard to rest over weekend and resenting Sunday nights and having those little signals, oh, we need to look at those rules.
I think what you covered there is definitely people who use their work as their identity. And if you ask them, let's say, if you were to ever threaten them with the idea of you're working too long, maybe you should take time off, maybe you should look at a different job, or hey, maybe we should go move abroad and try and for a few months and work over there. They're like, nope, I can't leave this job. This job is all I have. This is all I've ever done. This is what I want to do. And so they're like, I can't leave this company. Or maybe they're very tied to their identity of their work, but they're constantly exhausted. And if someone is passionate about what they do, and they could work 12 hours a day, they could work 20 hours a day, and they're still probably full of energy. If they're fully passionate about it, they're fueled by the work that they do, and they get fulfillment from it. But if someone is doing an 8 to 12 hour day, maybe even a 16-hour day, but they're constantly exhausted and they come home from work and they're still exhausted, they just literally just want to, they look for escapism, whether that be uh, binge watching a show on Netflix, or they go to food and they're eating emotionally, and or they go to drink or to drugs or something, and that's their way of winding down after work, that they're looking for some form of escapism when they come home from work. I think that's one of the other significant signs that people can see, be it a friend, colleague, or family member. I
Yeah.
think they're the most visible signs of burning out. And sometimes those are, let's say, closer to the critical point as well. And I think they're, let's say, the biggest red flags that I've seen. I think some of the earlier signs, when you see people burning out, it's when they start maybe calling in sick, or they might not even be calling in sick, but they're turning up to work and they're sick more often. And it's
Mm.
because it's affecting their immunity, because they're probably sleeping less, because they're working longer hours. They're probably not prioritizing their own self-care. So they're not prioritizing taking some time out in nature, or going for a walk,
Yeah.
or looking after their physical health, or looking after their nutrition. They're probably eating junk food or fast food just so that they can work more, or that they can focus on their studies more, or they can they're trying to put so much work into their day, or so much productivity into their day, that they're not giving themselves quality time. So there's so many factors to try and consider if you're trying to look at all the signs and symptoms of someone burning out. But I think they're the biggest red flags that I find, is that if someone is constantly exhausted, and if you try to confront them about their work, they identify with their work so much that it becomes a part of themselves. It becomes a part of their own identity. And sometimes that can be a good thing, especially if maybe they're an entrepreneur, or maybe they're self-employed and the work is their life and they're passionate about it. Great. But it's when it becomes an unhealthy balance, where they're constantly stressed or exhausted or fatigued, and it impacts on their own identity and their own personal life, that it's taking a toll on their health. That's when it becomes important to try and separate the boundary between work and personal life.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is such a big realization. Like, nothing is ever really bad or good. It's really, I love thinking in flavors. Like, if you're having a
Yes.
dish and do you flavor it with cinnamon or with, I don't know, coriander or something, it's like, okay, it tastes differently. It just has a totally different flavor. So the same with like workload and work identity. 100%. And really knowing this, I mean, it was so fascinating, like for my experience with I mean, events are you're selling emotion for a living. I mean, this is everything we do in every consumer good, like everything. We buy everything because we want to feel something. Like, I was never considering it for myself. Like, hey, I actually don't know how I really feel. Yes, I can say I'm stressed. Yes, I can say I'm exhausted. I'm annoyed. Sometimes maybe I'm happy, or it's funny, like giggling. But like really true, this kind of aliveness, not even happiness. This was also a weird concept for me back then. But like just aliveness, like really enjoying those little things, and knowing what to do with this kind of flavor of, yes, I feel I'm present and I'm alive. This it was so foreign. So this was really definitely something I also had to learn and get familiar with. But this is, and something that was really triggering me the most back then. I remember a colleague of mine told me, like, oh yeah, if you have no time to meditate, if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, you need 10 minutes to meditate. I was like, dude, you don't get it. Yes, now I get it, like what he was actually saying. But we need to find maybe language even, and have real compassion with those people in those states, because they are so in their race, in this rat race. Like, how can we properly pick them up and then take them on the journey so it becomes sustainable, that it's not like opposing or something, that's because it somehow is working. I mean, they are achieving things. Something is working. So how can we appreciate what's working? And just look at, okay, how can you create more bandwidth? Like I love to say, like, how can you create more emotional bandwidth for yourself? So you can be more flexible and see more, oh, is this working? Can I, in this conversation, maybe I need to ask once more, like, hey, how are you actually doing? Not just talk about business points, but have this 1.5 minutes of human connections before a meeting. If you're overloaded and stressed, you don't allow yourself to have that. But how can you be in this good, grounded place? It's like, okay, it is possible. Like one mind image, this is really mind changing for me. This what helped me so much understand it is actually seeing yourself like a Super Mario in a game. Did you play that back in the day, or maybe today? Like when you're Super Mario in one of the games, it's okay. You go through, you try to escape the mushrooms and then jump and then up and down. And yeah, maybe you sometimes drop somewhere or something crashes and you start over and it's okay. And to have that kind of understanding, like even today, my husband was struggling with something and I was saying, hey, it's okay. Your life doesn't depend on it. Yes, maybe your job depends on it. And yes, maybe you get fired if you rebel or you say, no, we're not going to do that. Can happen. Like we got this. We find another way. This is not the end all. So there is some capacity, some bandwidth. You can start over. There is another way. So having this gaming analogy maybe sometimes works for people. Think, okay, you can start over. There is another round. Maybe there's another life waiting for you, literally.
You covered a lot there. I especially with the gaming analogy. I think people always think that they've just one run at the game. But even when it comes to Super Mario, and one thing that I do love about Super Mario is that when you fail a level, you go back to the start, and you always start. You don't gain skills along the way. You always start with the same Super Mario. You lose all your powers, and you start off, and you're back to the start with no skills. But what you have learned is experience. And that comes down to the individual user. You have done this level, you've probably tried this level against Bowser 100 times. And you're like, okay, I know what's ahead. I know that there will be obstacles ahead. There's going to be fire, there's going to be bullets, there's going to be piranha plants, everything. But I know that I can try again and again and again. Yes, I may fail. Yes, there will be setbacks. But I know if I keep on trying, eventually, over time and experience, you don't need, let's say you probably develop special skills along the way. Let's say you see patterns and you know how to overcome them now. And eventually you finally get to the boss level, or you finally succeed and you finish your level, you get to that flag. Yeah, it's again, it's a good analogy. It's about taking a step back and realizing this isn't the be all and end all. And if I don't succeed now, yes, there may be a setback, but I have time. I can give myself some leeway and try again. When it comes to having that conversation with yourself, what questions, if someone doesn't know if they're experiencing burnout or not, let's say someone who's in denial, and you want them to look inwards and have that conversation with themselves, what questions would you get them to ask themselves?
Beautiful. So first off, I think we need to set the stage for that just a little bit, because I also for the longest time thought, okay, you have like the 3 big wishes from your intuition, like this big 3 major moments, like this is the person you should marry, this is the one thing you should, or this is the apartment you're gonna love forever, like these big things. But no, like what if it is available even for the small things? So we don't waste quote unquote questions on just asking like, hey, so is this working for us right now? Is this a good pattern? Is this a good process we're having here? Because yes, we on the surface we say yes, but like, is it really working for us? Then we say, okay, is there a yes or a no coming? And if it's a no, then it's like, allow yourself to keep asking, like, okay, what is not working? Why is it not working? And allowing yourself to just have this dialogue, this conversation. I love this image of what if this part of us is like this roommates, like you're living in this apartment, or maybe you had this as a student. Suddenly there's a roommate coming in, sitting down, just living there, and you never talk with them. Of course, that's awkward. This person doing things like maybe wanting something for you, but you're ignoring because you don't know what's the language or what's the pattern. Like, it is a relationship that just needs to be built and started with just hanging out and just having time and starting this conversation inward, like, hey, how do we feel right now? I love this little trick of like, hey, do I want this second or third cup of coffee right now or not? Are we good? Are we good? Okay. Sometimes it's a yes, like, oh, yes, I want this. It's good. Sometimes it's really a no, actually, I'm good for this third cup of coffee or whatever. So we can play with that, even in the little mundane things, and start to notice like, oh, I can find this home in me. There is this home base I was trying to fill with something else, or this new job, or this relocating or something. Like when we find this home base here in our heart and this soul connection, this can give us so much guidance and peace, just inner peace. Yeah, so many of my clients really say, like in the first session, hey, I just want inner peace. Like, oh, it's so hectic, so buzzing. Like, how can I feel this peace again with what I'm doing, where I'm at? And this can be a good start for that.
It's similar to what I do, is especially if I find myself in a moment where I feel stressed or I feel down about something, I just sit myself down and I'm like, Eugene, hey, how are you? How are you? And just like that, and just like, and don't just say, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm grand. It's like, just be honest with yourself. And you're like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good today. And it's like, great. Why are you feeling pretty good? And then you can start a whole chain of gratitude and gratefulness. And then other times you might feel a bit down. I'm like, you know what? I'm actually not feeling my best right now. I'm like, why are you not feeling your best? And then I start just keep on asking why. And it's like, I'm not feeling comfortable about this. I'm not 100% sure about this. Why am I not feeling sure about this? Why am I not confident about this? Why is this holding me back? Why am I feeling this way about this situation? And I just keep on taking it down until I get to as close as I can to the root cause. And I'm like, why is this holding me back? And then when I finally get down to, let's say, I'm like, keep on asking why, and I get stuck on one answer because it just keeps bringing back to, this is why I'm feeling sad about this. This is why I feel stuck on this. And I'm like, okay, what can we do today about that? What's the first step we can take? And it's not about just accepting it for what it is. It's about going deep. Just keep on asking why. Kind of like a toddler. They're going to keep on asking you why. They're going to be like, why is the sky blue? And you're like, oh, because that's the color sky is. They'll be like, but why? But why? But why? And you can just be like,
Yes.
oh, because that's what it is. And they're like, but why? They're not going to just accept that it is what it is. They're going to constantly ask why. And you kind of have to do that with yourself. You have to kind of embrace your inner child, your inner toddler, who constantly asks why, until either your patience runs thin, or you run out of answers, and you
Yeah.
realize, okay, now I'm at the final why, and you're like, okay, I can't go any further than this. What can I do about it?
Mm.
I think that's another one of my favorite analogies, is the toddler constantly asking why. And it's once you get down to the root cause, you're like, okay, I can't go why anymore.
Yeah.
What can I do about this so that it's no longer an issue? What's the one thing I can do today that will either solve this problem or at least make it easier?
Mm. Yeah. Beautiful. That's so good. I mean, it's so interesting because they don't know the rules yet, right? That we have or that we learned that in school. And we are so overburdened by all those rules, what we're allowed to do, what not, and this is why it's that. And of course, our brain loves efficiency and loves shortcuts and make things easy for ourselves. But maybe we ran to that point where it's like we're just run by all these shortcuts and quick this and then rules. But if those rules are not working anymore, or it's just taking your way of breathing away, in a sense, You just don't allow yourself anymore to question, like, hey, can the sky even be violet? Like, when can the sky be violet? Like, oh, at sunset. Oh, interesting. It's like just allowing yourself, like, oh, there are facets. To allow yourself to that space of challenging the rules and potentially writing your own rules then at some point.
So, Lily, if anyone wants to hear more about you and your work and what you do, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly hanging out on Instagram, actually, at Lilly Beyond. It's Lilly, Lilly Beyond. And yeah, this is my place. Just come and say hi. And yeah, I make fun reels and stuff, so it's always good to get some. I love giving emotional perspective, in a sense. This is the little drops I give there. So just stop by if you need a little pick me up.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, could you take a moment to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, because it really helps to improve the rating of the show so that it's more easily found by others who might enjoy the show just as much as you. And maybe take a moment to share with family, friends, or a loved one, because what better way to help break the stigma around mental health than to have that conversation with those closest to us. As always, reach out to me at giveyourselfsomeleeway.com, on social media, eugene.leeway, or shoot me an email, eugene@leeway.ie, because even though Give Yourself Some Leeway is like an outlet for me, I also want to give the highest value to you, my listeners. So I really depend on your feedback. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to hear more about. So until I hear from you, take care of yourself. Maybe have a glass of water, crack a smile, and think of a way to prioritize your own self-care. So until next time, take care.